But notice this. Jesus starts off with this place. When he's praying for Lazarus, he starts off and he says, Father, I thank you that you always hear me. Now, what is Jesus doing? He's establishing his identity. He's establishing, I'm your son. I have full rights here. And I thank you that you always hear me. And Jesus he's stepping out. He's stepping in a higher level of risk. He's saying, roll the stone away. All of these are steps of taking risk of something in the natural. These are not necessarily things that have been dictated or directives that have been given through the Father, but that Jesus is telling and is doing based on relationship. Very next words are, Lazarus, come forth. He calls him out. He calls him out with authority. And guys, the same authority God has given to you and I. Now, there's going to be times that there's things that we're going to do where it's not going to happen. It's not going to take place the way that we want it to. Or it's not going to happen the way that we expect it to. Obviously, Jesus ran up against those same things where it says he couldn't perform very many miracles in Nazareth because of their unbelief. But are we willing to step out and do it anyway?
I remember when I was in Costa Rica, the guys who was part of the worship team, he said, I really want you to pray for my brother. He has this flesh-eating bacteria that's gotten into his ear, and it's eating through his eardrum, and the doctor says it's going to keep going and start going through his brain, if something doesn't happen, and he'll die. And he says, I really want you to come, pray. We're praying for this, and but the pressure's going, the pain's going, excited about that, but wanting to see something more. And then finally, they came in and they told us, they said, I'm sorry, but your time's up. You're going to have to leave. And I was like, all right. And so as we were walking out, the sister said, can you wait here? I need to speak to the doctor. She took me to the waiting room. And we're sitting there, and I was, this is so funny. I am sitting there going, somebody in this hospital is getting healed tonight. I have come here, and I want to see somebody, get 100% healed. I will not take this sitting down, and I'm sitting there getting frustrated. And about that time, this woman walks into the waiting room, and I looked at her, and she looked at me and kind of smiled, and she stands over to the side, and I looked at her and I said, I'm sorry. I said, do you speak English? And she goes, a little bit. And then this other guy goes, I speak English. And I said, well, could you ask her if she's having pain in her hip, in her left part of her hip? I said, I'm not sure if it's like sciatica, but like, a little bit more inside, but, in the back part of her hip, like lower back and hip area. And she looked, and as soon as he said that, she looks back and she started saying in Spanish, I knew it. And he was like, she's saying, I knew it. And I was like, knew what? And she goes, I knew when I saw you that, God was on you. And of course, I was encouraged, because I had just left a room where a guy did not get completely healed. And I was frustrated about that. And so I'm like, thank you, And I said, are you having pain there right now? And she goes, yes. She goes, I'm actually in really bad pain. She goes, as a matter of fact, I'm not sitting because it hurts for me to sit. And she goes, and I said, well, let me pray for you. And so I prayed for her, and instantly her pain dropped down to a 2, from a 10 to a 2, and then prayed again, and it dropped from a 2 to a 0. And she's bending over, and she starts to cry, and she goes, you have to come pray for my father. She goes, my father is in a coma back in this room. Now, everything inside of me is like, I can't do healing on a flesh-eating bacteria right now. I mean, comas feel like so much higher than flesh-eating bacteria at the moment. And it would have been easy just to say, hey, let's just rejoice in your hip, and I got to go, sorry. But I was like, no, let's do it. I said, is there any way you can get me back there? And she goes, you're not on the list, but she goes, it just so happens I know one of the nurses at the station. So she goes and talks to the nurse. And so they bring me in this room, and the guy had been out for, I think, 3 months. And he's on life support. He's got the tubes sticking down his throat. His his eyes are, very closed, and, he's just out, and has all these electrodes on him. And so we walk over to his bed, and I looked at the woman. I said, now I'm going to tell you something. I said, God's about to completely heal him. He's going to wake up from this coma so that you and everybody here watching, and the nurse was kind of standing in the corner, with her arms folded. will see the demonstration of God's power. I said, are there any other family members you can get to bring in here right now? And she was like, well, yeah. She goes, there's one other. And so she goes and gets, I think it was her brother-in-law. And so he comes in the room. And I said, all right, so we're going to pray. I believe I'm operating with the same thing that Jesus is. He's seeing a need, and he's wanting to respond to that. He feels the compassion towards those people who need healing. And so the one thing that holds us back from that is the fear of looking like an idiot. And that's a pretty big fear that holds us back. It's a pretty big fear that keeps us from that. But I'm okay with looking like an idiot. And so I put my hand on the man's head, and I said, Father, I thank you for your authority and power that you've given to me. And I said, and it's by that authority, in the name of Jesus, that right now I command, and as soon as I said that, the guy's eyes popped open. And when that happened, the nurse screamed. She's like, ah! And the woman was like, mi Dios, mi Dios, mi Dios, mi Dios. And I'm like, ugh. It freaked me out. Now, I've seen some pretty high bar healings. You know what I mean? I've seen blind people with complete blind eyes. I've seen people get up out of wheelchairs and run. I've seen some pretty spectacular stuff. But man, this guy's eyes popping open, and I mean, they didn't just, sort of ease open. They just popped open, and I was like, whoa. And I couldn't even say the rest of the words, and they weren't even really necessary at that point. And the man's trying to talk, and he's got these tubes, and they rush to go get the doctor, and they bring the doctor back into the room, and he's like, I need you guys to leave the room now. So we stepped out and went back, and then they were like, a couple of the nurses were like, we've got this other guy over here that needs prayer. We got this other guy over here that needs prayer. Now, all of that coming out of a complete failure experience. Out of praying for the guy that I went there to see, to pray for healing, and nothing, he did have some relief of easement of pain and suffering, but still, guys, let me tell you something. The enemy is always going to try to get us to back us down with, okay, you're not good enough, you don't have it. This fear to sort of back us down and keep us away. But there's something that we've been given in our relationship with Christ, and that is authority. Jesus said, all authority has been given to me, and I'm in you. I'm in you.
All right, guys, this is session 9, and what an exciting story. That day of experiencing just God move like that was just so incredible and so incredible to use. But there's some times that we don't experience that, and it would be easy to get discouraged. It'd be easy to feel like we have setbacks and that we're not seeing those kinds of results. We're not seeing that kind of an impact. The story you just heard is a story that many people would say is a big story. It's a big thing. And so those aren't always going to be the case. There's sometimes you're going to step out and you're not going to see the results you want to see. One of the things I want to encourage you to remember is the results are not for me. The results are not for you. The results are for the Lord. That's how He gets the glory. And so this isn't about me seeing the results I want to see. That would make me being Lord, and that would mean me trying to get the glory. But when I recognize that this is the results that the Lord is after and that He is the one that it's for, then I can let myself go from any stress or worry or fear about things not taking place. So I really want to encourage you to focus on that and just recognize that all this belongs to Him. When things don't happen the way that we want or things don't quite work how we want, sometimes it's best to step back and say, okay, Lord, what are you showing me in that? Because so many times God is wanting to speak to us about certain things. And things that we think are setbacks or things that could easily be discouragements actually are times where the Lord wants to speak to us. Sometimes when I've been really, really down, those times have been places where I've really had to push into Jesus. And I've had to hear Him more. I've had to be more sensitive and had to cry out to Him more and really stop and say, Lord, would you really reveal to me what's happening here? Help me to understand how you're working and what you're doing. And He will speak to you. He will show you. He wants the best for you.
God is not a God that's withholding from you. He loves you. He's passionate about you. See those discouragements as a way for God to really reveal himself to you. When I am in those places, I can really realize that I just need to press into him, and I can hear him more clearly. I want to encourage you to not be distracted by the results that don't happen the way you want. Make the commitment. I'm going to pray for people no matter what. I'm going to pray for people even if they're not healed. I'm going to pray for people even if they're not delivered. I'm going to pray for people and I'm going to lay hands on them. I'm going to do that because Jesus said in Luke 9 and Luke 10, go heal the sick. He said, go give words of knowledge. Go out, cast out demons. He said, just go do this. And so I'm going to do my part. And I can step away knowing that I have been in a successful walk because I did what Jesus told me to do. And I don't have to be frustrated about that, and I don't have to be discouraged about that. So let's pray, and I'd like to pray that the Lord just encourage you throughout the rest of this week. Father, I thank you that, Lord, even though we're discouraged, even though we go through frustrations, that we don't live there. That's not a place where we stay. That's just a place we're at temporarily. And Father, I thank you that for each of my friends, that if they've been discouraged, if they've been frustrated, if things haven't happened the way that they wanted, that they would be able just to stop right now and say, Lord, this isn't for me, it's about you and it's for you. And I just give that discouragement to you. And I'm going to obey you. I'm going to go pray for people. I'm going to go minister to people. I'm going to go share people my faith, even if they reject me. I'm going to go share my story, even if those who turn away, once I start talking about you, Lord, I'm going to keep you in the center, and I'm going to love you because, Father, that's what you've told us to do. And so, Father, I pray that for each one of these, that they would just find an encouragement in realizing that we're doing this together. We've been through this time together. We've spent these 9 weeks together. And Lord, that you are taking us to a higher place and that we are not going to let discouragement hold us back, but we are stepping into all that you are and to express to the world that Christ is in us and the hope is there and that you are passionately in pursuit of all humanity. I thank you for that, Lord. Let that be the driving passion that is in our lives this week and throughout the rest of our lives, to share you with others. In Jesus' name, amen.